Thank you.
If I can ask a supplemental to that very simple question that got a very complicated answer. Because Senator Coyle's question is very important, Madame Paquette. If I look at the report, the economic report that Global Affairs presented, and I believe you presented it to the House Committee on the 26th of February or somewhere around that time, you do make the claim that CUSMA will improve GDP gains by $6.8 billion. But of course, in that same report, and I quote, the implementation of the CUSMA outcome and your analysis was basically done on a base analysis of U.S. withdrawal from NAFTA. So essentially, your analysis is you're comparing the agreement with no agreement, correct? So when you make that kind of a comparison, it certainly skews the numbers quite considerably, where my understanding with the CD Howe analysis, they're actually analyzing this current agreement with the past NAFTA agreement. So I'm a little bit troubled by two things. I'm trying to figure out why would Global Affairs not provide Parliament of Canada with an adequate economic analysis of this study, this negotiation, this deal with what's in place right now. And what's really troubling is why did Global Affairs present this economic analysis, which we are going to, I encourage my colleagues to analyze it carefully. You presented it to the House of Commons Foreign Affairs Committee a month after the agreement was tabled and the review on the part of the House began. So I think it would be only appropriate that this study, with all due respect, should have been provided by Global Affairs right at the outset to the House Committee on January 29th when it was tabled. And the question I have is, why did Global Affairs not do a straight-up analysis of this current deal versus what we had in place under NAFTA?
Well, thank you very much for that. So the way we see the situation is exactly this way. So NAFTA was never a status quo that was viable. It was simply not. And therefore, the real comparison is either CUSMA or the new NAFTA compared to no NAFTA. And this is what you have before you. So that's the one thing. And this is what we strongly believe. This is exactly what the negotiators were facing. And plus, of course, we had the imposition on Section 32 tariffs on steel and aluminum. That was reality. So that also is in the base scenario. And that we managed, of course, with the new NAFTA, also to eliminate those Section 232 tariffs. So these are positive things, of course. So for us, the real situation we were facing is CUSMA compared to no NAFTA. So this is what you have before you. On the second point, yes?
Go ahead.
Okay. On the second point, in terms of timing, I understand it's not the optimal. We would have, believe me, I would like to provide you with an earlier document. We have decided, and that's why I alluded to it in my remarks, to revisit this idea of policy uncertainty. As many economists that probably you have seen and talked to will, and business people will tell you the same thing. A reduction in policy uncertainty is a good thing. And you've heard our chief negotiator mention a few of the good areas that they have achieved in terms of positive outcomes that, as I said, it's unfortunate we were not able to take into account. So we revisited this idea of reduction in policy uncertainty. And we've done it we've tried to do it the way the US ITC has done it. And if you look at the US ITC report, you'll see that for the first time, to the best of my knowledge, it's the first time they have 3 scenarios in such a report. It's the first time. They normally only have one number out. This time they have 3 numbers, and they have a minus 22 billions up to a 235, 68 right in the middle. And what drives everything here is how they treat policy uncertainty reduction. That's it. So if you don't do anything in the model, if you don't force anything there, you have a negative impact on the US economy. If you put a bit of reduction in policy uncertainty, you've got a positive 68 billion. If you put a lot of reduction in policy uncertainty, you get plus $235 billion. So we were not able to completely replicate what the US has done for different reasons, lack of data and lack of knowledge because they've run extra modeling beforehand. So we tried our best, we just couldn't do it. So we've decided to revisit the issue. We imported the coefficient from the US ITC in terms of how to put in the model. We said, okay, we'll try it. And I alluded to that. What we got as results is a huge impact on the Mexican economy of close to 20 billion. Very bizarre. A smaller impact on the US economy, 17 billion or so, when the US report states 68 billion. So we were so far away, we just couldn't, stick to that. We can't. So what we understand is that they've put other interventions in the model based on their interpretation of the agreement that we are not aware of. So there's something else going on that we can't explain. And for that reason, we decided we've done it, but we've decided not to report, not to treat it the same way in the model. So that's in part why we were so last minute.
I appreciate that answer, and I appreciate the comparison vis-a-vis the U.S. report, which again I invite my colleagues to look at because they're two very different types of documents and different approaches. But wouldn't have Global Affairs thought it would be helpful, in addition to having an analysis of this agreement versus no agreement, in order for us to have what the this agreement versus the NAFTA agreement, so we can actually compare the most current agreement we had? Wouldn't Global Affairs think that that would have been a useful exercise and document to provide parliamentarians?
Again, I can say the same thing. We believe that strongly this is a situation we're facing. If NAFTA had been a status quo option, I doubt that we would have embarked on such long and painful negotiations. So,
Senator